What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of SSPN Player Profiles. And today, Ethan, we're going to be talking about somebody who has, in the last episode, we talked about how Trey Jones, we're not sure about how the Spurs view him moving forward. And we feel like this season, depending on where he is in the lineup and just his role this year, we'll kind of learn more about how they view him in the context of this team. As much as we have added more talent, I think we know that the Spurs think pretty highly of Devin Vassell. And since we did our top 5 Spurs podcast a while ago, Ethan, I have come around more and more to your opinion of putting him as the Spur with the second highest potential on the team. I think I'm just saying I understand where you're coming from for.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily changing my pick yet. I'm sticking
Uh-huh.
with Jeremy, but I understand where you're coming from. And a lot of that has to do with just a tweet that we saw pretty recently that you sent me. Not to say that that's the only thing that makes me think Devin Vassell is really good, but like it just kind of opened the floodgates in my mind when you were showing me the comparison of the Penny Hardaway step back jumpers that he did this season. And it was like, I knew that was a Penny Hardaway step back jumper, but I had to like see that tweet for it to be reminded and back into my psyche. And it was just like after that, I was like, oh my gosh, Devin.
Mm-hmm.
It's just his shot creation ability last year, even though it was only 38 games, just seemed on a different level than the season prior, something we hadn't seen before from him. Obviously, I want to see it consistently over a season.
Mm-hmm.
But just the little things we saw from him last year, man, it's somebody you want to have next to Victor Wembanyama coming into the league.
I really just wish we had a larger sample size, Jude, because what we did get last year was pretty darn impressive. Like, I don't think anybody that watched him play last year can really say anything negative about the way that Devin Vassell improved in just about every single facet of the game. I don't know where you want to start this. Do you want to start with where I think he should improve, or you want me to just jump into what I love so much about him?
Here we can. Well, yeah, that's kind of how I started there. Here, go. You could talk about what you love about him since I kind of started there, and then we'll go into improvements.
Well, as you know, like you alluded to, I chose him as my Spur with the second highest potential, right behind Victor Wembanyama. There's a few things that led to that decision, namely that he just has the build of a modern NBA superstar and the skill set, and he'll have the opportunity more so than guys like Jeremy to showcase those talents. He's 6'5", long arms, versatile, can defend 1 through 4 at times, 1 through 3 comfortably, but 1 through 4 at times. He came into the league as a stretch, not a stretch, a 3-and-D guy. Really only could shoot the 3 ball. Now he has a handle. Now he can create his own shot in the mid range. He can step back for 3, and he's become a pretty consistent finisher. And he has underrated athleticism, and he's
Yeah,
continued to build strength. This past year, I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's put on so much muscle. Like, this is probably where his max is as far as strength is. Nope. He came back again this offseason. He put even more muscle on. The dude looks absolutely yoked. So he'll have the ball in his hands. We all know that not modern, NBA history has shown us that duos are usually a scoring guard, or let me rephrase, a guard and a big,
hmm
right? Devin Vassell and Victor Wembanyama would complement each other so perfectly, which leads me to believe that he will have the second highest potential as far as becoming an all-star, having great stats. He averaged 19 last year. I think he can get to 22 this year. Keldon averaged 22. I think that's easily within Devin Vassell's grasp.
I completely agree. I mean, it kind of just ties in to what I was saying there at the end, Ethan. And I'm losing my train of thought again. So I'm just going to jump into what I had written down here. But when it comes to improvements,
Mhm.
so this is kind of already what we've alluded to. Doing what we saw in the 38 games he played over a full season,
Yes.
right? Just
Yes.
consistently doing it, seeing it throughout the season. We just haven't seen that. Because I believe that he really can be that, the other thing I wrote down was really becoming the number 1 to 2 scoring option, depending on
Yes.
how quickly Wemby adapts. That's basically because I assume everything's kind of going to be around Wembanyama. But if he comes in and it's really, I mean, I think we both agree there's going to be some struggles, but I think it's going to. The point that I'm trying to make is there might be a situation that Devin might need to come in and be the number one scoring option early in the season. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Um, and the way that I ended that was just become a 25 point per game guy. And I don't
Yeah,
mean that necessarily as averaging 25 this year, because just the context of the team and everything. I just think as being a guy who is getting close to that, who can do that on any given night. You know what I'm saying?
for
And
sure.
because we only saw it in 38 games last year, I'm not ready to say that yet. So I think him, really taking a hold of that number one or two scoring option
Hmm.
will, in turn, he'll become that. And then the last thing I had was something you touched on also, is just continue to add muscle efficiently. That's the way that I wrote it there, efficiently. You don't
Mm.
want to add too much, but like you said, we thought it might have been, the peak last year. And now it seems like there's even more space on his frame for him to add a little bit more. And if he can do that, you talked about his underrated athleticism. I mean, you might see some more posters out of Devo. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? And so if he can add some strength to his game, not only would that help with that would, that's a little bit of an aspiration there. But we know a lot of times he uses his shoulders to create separation from guys on step backs. And even, with the Penny Hardaway jumper, if you have a little bit more muscle there, that's only going to create more separation for Devin, who has, an enormous wingspan for somebody his size, which already allows him to kind of get over the top of defenders a lot when he's shooting.
1,000%. I agree with what you said about strength, especially when it comes to finishing. That will only help get that more consistent. Improvements for Devin, playmaking. And I think that really just because he didn't really have the ball that much last year, so he didn't really have the opportunity to do so. But coming off of pick and rolls with Wemby, with Zach Collins, I think he could maybe take some strides in that area. But this isn't really an improvement, but this is my expectation, I guess. The expectation is there's no more excuses for Devin Vassell going forward for me. Like, I'm not gonna give him the he's young anymore excuse. Like, oh, he's learning still. He's got to get some rust off. All those excuses that we give our young guys for Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson, for me, those are out the window. Those two guys they're on their own, and the same could be said for Trey Jones, I guess. So that's no longer the case. This is his year to show out and take a big step.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you factor in, I hadn't really thought of that yet. And I still, to be honest with you, I kind of was still kind of keeping that perspective like, okay, but they're still 24,
Hmm.
23, but they have had those reps in the league. But the more important thing is you had Wembenyama.
Yeah.
That's the more important thing, I think, when it comes to, the excuses kind of being up a little bit. Now we'll have to see how he load manages, but if everything translates, the way that it's supposed to and the way that we'd like, those excuses will probably not be available anymore.
Hmm.
Um, when it comes to his strengths, I mean, we've already talked about a lot of this. I'll just say the three things I wrote down: shot creator extraordinaire. That's what he became last season.
Hmm.
Three level scorer. Although I would like to see, like we talked about with his, adding a little bit more muscle, and just a little bit more consistency scoring on the inside. Not that that's bad, but just I would say that it's more consistent, in his jump shots as of right now. But still, overall, a three-level scorer for sure. And then solid, lengthy defender on or off the ball.
I already said all the strengths that I had I had at the beginning of the video, but one thing that I improvement that I should have mentioned, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what you said about strength and finishing at the rim more consistently, getting to the foul line. I think he only
Yeah.
got to the foul line like 3 times a game last year. Like that needs to go way up.
Shout out Ice in
Shout out Ice.
the one and what was it called? The one on
One
ones.
on one with George Gervin, yes sir.
Yeah, so that's what, for those of you guys who don't know, go check out the one-on-ones they did last year. Jeremy Sohan on the Spurs YouTube. Jeremy Sohan did one with Tony Parker. Devin Vassell did one with George Gervin. And George was asking him, hey, young fella, how much you averaging? I think he said
Hmm.
like around 20. He's like, man, you should be getting 25. You got to the line.
Yep,
It's facts. It's
absolutely.
absolute facts. And he's a great free throw shooter. So those are points left on the board for sure. But I think the muscle, like we
Will
talked
help.
about, will help him, yeah, with that as well. So
Hmm.
that's becoming more of a theme than I even would have expected when I wrote it down kind of in my notes here, Ethan. But I'll give you my overall thoughts on Devin. This is a long little diatribe I did. It's a little bit longer than the Trey Jones one. So I'm kind of, I don't remember all that I wrote, so I'm kind of curious what I said. Devin Vassell has the opportunity to really break out as a scorer this season. With all the attention Wembenyama will attract, Vassell will enter his fourth year coming off his best season to date. Despite only playing 38 games last season And a lot of that had to do with tanking, if we're being honest. I put that down there, like when it comes to the surgery
Yeah.
and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Vassell consistently showed off Penny Hardaway inspired hop step jumpers, incorporated step backs off the dribble in the mid range, as well as improving his finishing ability at the rim while continuing to be a reliable catch and shoot guy. This is all on top of being an above average defender. We sometimes forget in the midst of the Spurs roster that Vassell was the first lottery pick post Kawhi. This
Yes.
might be his time to let everyone know the type of talent he is.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Jude. I don't have anything
You
else to
see
add.
how I was thinking though, like
Mm-hmm.
when I wrote that down, I'm thinking about you putting him as the second one, and I forget that he's like I forgot, like I said, I forgot he was the first lottery guy, and
Mm-hmm.
then on top of that, you look at the track record Florida State has had recently with the type of people they've been putting out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's this really should be his breakout year.
1000%.
Well, y'all, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button below if you love Devin Vassell. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SSPN on YT, at Jude McLaren, and at Ethan_Quintero to stay updated with the show. We appreciate you guys. We'll catch y'all on the next one. See y'all later.